All right, we are rolling. Hello, hello, my dear friends. Operator Starsky here with a team, with the team that we will be discussing the recent updates with. We have Paul, our anchor at UATV. We also have Caolan Robertson here as well in the middle. How are you guys? How are you? Let's start with Paul.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm really happy to see you guys, K1 and Starsky, my colleagues, my friends from the pro-Ukrainian blogger community. And it's been a couple of nights. It's been a couple of nights over the weekend in Ukraine with mass strikes. Then the spiderweb operation came, yeah, just in place. And right now we have the awful threats of Oreshnik use, but no demonstration of that yet.
Oh my God. We will talk about Tereshnik. It's very good that you mentioned that, my friend. Kaelan, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm in Odessa at the moment. I came here and arrived just after what happened on Sunday, and it was quite ironic because he's looking at the Black Sea and realizing that a third of the Russian fleet is also down there. Just 24 hours after remembering what happened on Sunday, it felt quite fitting. But I'm good, busy, always working on stuff.
Yeah, it's very good that you didn't get into any fist fight that we were talking about that in the previous video. On the other hand, I think if we lost your opponent there in Belgium, we would not be sorry big time about that. Anyways, we will talk about that as well. You will talk more about it. I think our viewers would like to know. So first of all, Paul, what are your news? Because we could see today this amazing video of Kerch Bridge finally being hit by forces of light and karma and everything good that we have. Are there any new updates that you know of? And I will tell you what I know about.
Yeah, just to be honest, the newest update on the situation is that President Donald Trump did know nothing of the Operation Spiderweb. It was just announced by the White House press secretary, and yeah, she told the world. Let me see this news. One moment, please. Just to say her name, because to be honest, I really don't remember her name. Caroline
And
Levitt. Yeah,
and
Levitt or
frankly,
Babbitt.
don't care.
Yeah. Not at this moment, not until she announces some real big packages of support for Ukraine. Yeah, so Trump did know nothing of the Operation Spiderweb, and I believe if he knew anything that Mr. Putin would know about the operation too, it was all a surprise to me. So it's a really strange experience, when you wake up in the morning and you see news of the a new brave and bold operation of the special forces of Ukraine or the security service, and you just wonder how the hell did they do that? And each time, each time you are surprised because I mean, Call of Duty style launching drones from trucks deep inside Russia. That's something that you expect from a video game and not from real life.
100%, Kaelan, what's your thought about that?
I just thought it was the most impressive thing I'd ever seen. I mean, the Mossad attack was one of the most amazing coordinated events that had happened, and that was really praised because it specifically targeted people with pagers that were military, right? That if you had one of those pagers, that would have identified you. And this was similar, right? This was specific military targets. And it was just so nice to see, and even as a journalist, and someone that's supposed to kind of be, not taking full sides with emotions with everything. It was just something that made me so proud to see. Just even being in Ukraine, and just witnessing something like this, because it was just incredible. And it seems like every single now and then, there's just these amazing events that Ukrainians just pull out of their pocket. New tech, new innovations, new strategies, new teams. It's amazing. I spent a lot of time with drone units all across the Eastern Front here, and the stuff that they're developing, the tactics, the surprise attack, it's amazing. But yeah, this was, I guess, what I expected to happen was there would be a massive disinformation campaign as soon as this had happened, because Russians would have been genuinely devastated by it, by every level of society, which is why you also know it's quite successful. And that's what happened. They all said it was NATO that did it. They all said that it was, a war crime, and it's obviously ridiculous, but incredible to see. And I imagine there's so many more things like this that are planned, that are going to happen. It's definitely not the last thing that we'll see, and I think the Russians know that as well. They know that if they can do this, they're certainly thinking of other stuff. But this is what Ukraine is, and it showed this country, it showed the world what this country is, which is far stronger than people want to think it is, and Trump wants to have people think it is. That Ukraine is genuinely powerful in a way that people never imagined before. It's like taking Kursk, holding Russian territory for 8 months and having to rely on insane neighbors like Iran and North Korea just to take it back. That shows Russia's weak. Yeah, Sunday showed Russia's weak. And even if you're buying into pro-Kremlin lies and you're listening to Trump, I think most people that saw what happened on Sunday would think, maybe Russia isn't as strong as we thought. That seems pretty terrible. That seems pretty bad. And it kind of seems pretty badass that Ukraine did this. Like, even if you buy the Kremlin lines, you'd be like, okay, that's kind of cool. So, as from an image standpoint as well, on the world stage, I think it did wonders. Really incredible.
Absolutely. It's like, those who follow Russian propaganda, they go like, terrorist attack on the peaceful Russian bombers, peacefully parked, at the airport. Terrorist attack, crazy terrorist attack. From that attack, we also know that between 1 and 2 A-50 Russian AWACS aircraft were hit, which is great. I don't remember how many have we destroyed already. Was it like 2 or 3? Because I remember
it was one destroyed, one damaged severely, and I believe 2 destroyed and 2 damaged right now.
Yeah, something like that. And there were updates that between 1 and 2 additionally were destroyed in this particular strike, which again is something that Russia cannot produce, cannot repair, cannot reproduce, because basically they're unable to do that. Instead of building new airplanes, they are trying to modernize whatever they have and keep it flying, but they cannot build anything even on the level of like Tu-95 bombers, because they're too old, and basically Russia cannot do that. So today's strike in Crimea, we literally talked about that like 2 days ago with Serhiy Sumlany. People were asking about the Crimean bridge, and I said that, guys, we need something bigger than like ATACMS to be able to hit this bridge. And just today, the new video was released by the Security Service of Ukraine that something happened, so some karma hit back. Apparently Security Service of Ukraine managed to deliver, Special Operation Forces, okay, because there's not only them. So they managed to deliver a charge that was as big as approximately 1 ton of explosives, and they managed to deliver that to the foundation of the bridge and basically destroy it. The foundation was damaged. The very structure is kind of damaged pretty bad. But again, as we talked in the previous video, and I said over and over again, unfortunately, humankind knows how to build bridges, because we were building them for thousands of years, and it's not that easy to destroy a bridge, even such a bridge as that one in carriage. So do you have any updates on that, by the way, Paul? Do you know more details?
Yeah, just what happened in the carriage bridge, still we do not really know. there were a couple of fake videos released just after the strike. The older ones, when the carriage bridge on fire. Yeah, sorry, when it was in smoke, and yeah, we will know the details of this operation only, I believe, in a couple of weeks, if not months, because if this scheme works, it will work. It could work again, and you do not really want to let the enemy know about how this worked. Did it destroy the bridge? No, it did not. Did it cause significant damage? That's the way you ask this question, because even one big pillar of the bridge, each explosion, each vibration is a risk that the bridge will collapse. Just collapse under the flow of cars, a traffic jam, or military wagons that go on the railroad, because it's a railroad slash car bridge. And each strike of the security service, of the main intelligence directorate, is more chances that the bridge will collapse by itself. Yeah, destroying the bridge is really hard. You need not even one ATACMS direct hit, not even 2 or 3, because it's a really concrete and sturdy construction. But taking out the strategic pillars of this bridge, it is possible. And we could see that over the time, maybe months, a year, the more problems with the bridge will start to emerge.
Absolutely. Recently, recently a new symbol emerged, okay, in this whole picture of Ukraine's defense against Russia. A new symbol emerged, because if you probably remember 2022, 2023, one of our symbols was literally like tractor dragging Russian tank, like a Ukrainian tractor dragging like that freaking wreckage. And a new symbol emerged. I'm trying to show it on the screen. Yeah, it's a truck, my friends. It's a truck. So now
Yeah, that truck.
yeah, now the truck became a new symbol of Ukraine's fight. I don't know who makes them. By the way, this one was delivered to me by Ellie. Ellie, this one is amazing. I love it. Caolan, I have a question to you, because guys, we need to talk about things like this. Can you explain, please, because we already have that in the comments as well. Jared Martin says, now we know tires on planes don't work. Caolan, maybe you can explain this to me. Why do they put tires on top of the airplanes?
From what I was hearing about it, it's basically just a really makeshift, cheap approach to protect those planes from drone attacks. The Russians, because of the amount of corruption that there is, throughout all the supply chains, means that if a couple of $1 million or say even $1 billion goes to, say, fortifying an oil refinery or ammo storage, by the time that actually gets to the person that needs to fortify it, they end up just putting a bit of tinfoil over the roof or something. We saw this with Kursk as well. The reason the border wasn't that fortified was because the amount of corruption that exists within the supply chains of Russia meant that those millions that Putin put to fortify that border ended up with basically just a couple of guys with shovels digging fallback trench lines. And that's kind of a similar thing. It's basically just really cheap, rubbish, makeshift approaches to try and protect their stuff, because they don't have the money available, they don't have the kind of talent or time available to protect it. Russia didn't think that they were vulnerable like this until relatively recently, until Ukraine actually started striking inside Russia, which wasn't that long ago. And as soon as that started happening, they went into panic mode, and they were like, literally, what can we do? Let's put tires on the roof, because I guess they absorb shock. But we see this with their tanks as well, putting nets up and things like this. It's just kind of a defensive thing, but it's super weak. I mean, a tire might protect something from from an FPV drone. If it hits the tire, maybe if it's a tiny drone, but it's just like a really pathetic attempt at fortification, and it's just typical Russia.
You know,
Caolan, about
guys,
that.
before you before you answer, Paul, I think that a new symbol also emerged in Russia. You know, in Russian folklore, like this old car tire, like Russian oberi. How to tell? How to translate this?
Oh my, that's a talisman.
Talisman, yes, talisman against evil things, against evil spirits. Basically, an old car tire. This can become like the national-wide thing for Russia. I think that
The symbol.
yeah, the symbol of Russian resilience, and a dirty car tire. You gotta wear it on your freaking neck, and everything will be fine. Paul, your thoughts about that?
Yeah, just about that drone cage. Yeah, how they called drone cages.
Cope
First, we
cages.
saw them cock cages. Yeah, on Russian equipment and Russian tanks and APCs, MTLBs, everything like that, and everyone was laughing. Then we saw them on Ukrainian equipment, and these cockpits are really working. If not that, Israel's Merkava tanks are covered with them, improvised cock cages again. And right now, we see Slovakia implementing on the official level the modification of their Leopard 2 A6 tanks, I believe A6 or A4, which modification they have, I really don't remember, with these drone cages. So on the official level, drone nets along roads, and drone cages, they really can save from small FPV drones the equipment, just protect some level of protection. But yes, big targets like strategic bombers, which are vulnerable to any kind of, even a bird, yeah, possibly. So a bird that's going into the engine of Tu-122, possibly, and Tu-222 M3, those turbojet strategic bombers can damage it and bring it down. And a small FPV drone with ammunition with RPG-7 grenade, cumulative, nothing is going to protect from a cumulative charge, and possibly there were explosive or cumulative ones.
Yeah, that's something that I cannot understand. Speaking of those drones that took place there during that attack, I think they were carrying not thermobaric but fragmentation charges, because when you hit a target like an airplane, those work better usually, as far as I know.
Frag grenades are better for planes.
Yeah, could be thermobaric, but from what I could see and tell, because they were carrying like two smaller charges, could be either thermobaric or fragmentation. But freaking car tires, I don't know, like I'm trying to imagine, you know, this Russian officer who came up with this idea, and apparently he wasn't really sober at that moment, like, just put those freaking tires on top of them, and the soldiers were like, yes sir, you know, and they went and they started like putting those tires on the airplanes. Oh my god, it's like, I'm so happy that we are fighting imbeciles. Like, not all of them, of course. Like, we're not underestimating Russian enemy, because we know that it's a cunning enemy. But they are also imbeciles. And today, basically, President Zelensky confirmed that, confirmed this statement. Caolan, a question to you, my friend, because I know that you've been to this area. Since late January this year, there's big group of Ukrainian soldiers, approximately 5,000 of them, according to President Donald Trump, still surrendered somewhere, probably in that area of Suja. I don't know. We haven't heard about them since, you know, since they stopped speaking about those 5,000 soldiers. But what's going on? What's happening to those guys? Do they need food? Do they need some kind of supplies. Where are they? Their mothers like keep calling me every day. Where are those guys? 5,000 Ukrainian soldiers. We still don't know like anything about them. Do you have any idea where they can be?
I guess you're talking about. I mean, when Trump said that, and this was when U.S. intelligence had been switched off, and there was all sorts of mess going on there, and there was Kremlin propaganda put out. I think it was originally like 30,000, wasn't it? And then they thought that was too silly to say, so they reduced it back to 5. I had people. I mean, I wasn't there, so it's very hard to know like exactly what's going on. But I remember it was basically just Kremlin nonsense to make it seem like Kursk was a complete failure and everyone surrendered and no one wanted to fight anyway. Like Russia Today ended up putting out constant reports saying that. That's the kind of stuff that I focus on more specifically, is kind of like the stuff that the Kremlin say, how it gets repeated by the US, and then what's happening. But I mean, I'm sure there was a few prisoners of war, but the fact that Trump literally just repeated all of it without checking any of it with even the Ukrainians was ridiculous. But he's always going to do this. I know the situation in Sumy is not great because the Russians are just throwing so much they possibly can at it, and they're trying to break through the border north of where the crossing is towards Suja. They're trying to do it in the south, and it's just because they're trying to get as much land as possible before they think that they are going to have some sort of ceasefire. But yeah, I mean, I remember that was, when was this, in January? Yeah, it was a while ago that this was repeated, and then it just all went quiet because I think Trump realized it was nonsense to repeat that stuff.
Hopefully, because it's very typical for Trump to repeat the same stuff over and over again, as if, as if saying like something new to people every single time. If I was if I was a professional journalist, okay, I would be freaking insulted by that, because he basically says the same stuff over and over again, the same crap that his like PR advisors told him. Like, you tell everyone that this war would never start if he was like president. Tell him that you can easily finish this war. Tell people that you're working on it, and that is something that he keeps spreading. Like, Ukraine is like this very, very flat place, and the only thing that stops a bullet is a human body, and there's so many people, young men, just scattered around. They are not Americans, they are not us. We were not supposed to be there at all, but we want to stop it, and this war would never start if I was. And he keeps this on a freaking repeat. This is so irritating. I heard that.
Yeah.
I heard that some of the members of Congress tried to pass this as like new mental disorder. Like, if you cannot stand Trump, like, you have a mental disorder. Paul, did you hear anything about this?
You speak, but I cannot hear respect in your voice, you don't seem to have any psychiatric cards on your hands. I don't know about that. Yeah, there's a condition, I believe it's called a condition right now, and I'm speechless because this is not what I expected from America, what anybody expected from America, but not liking someone being a condition right now. For years, I've seen some liberal policies coming from the United States for a decade at least. In psychiatry, in medicine, you had some more inclusion, you had some more like liberal tendencies, and now you got this. The more maybe strange was the difference in votes between the two Polish presidential candidates, which was 1%. So I was shocked when I saw that result, just 1%, and it's legit. And right now with that condition, well,
yeah. Do you think that before we start talking about Poland, and also I want to hear your story, Caolan, very much, but I want you, Paul, to answer this. Do you think that, do you observe that Trump started switching his stance towards Ukraine, that he started shifting like more towards Ukraine, or he now demonstrates his desire to literally just abandon everything and just go? What do you think?
You asking me, right?
Yeah.
No, I do not see any reasons, any conditions that he is pro-Ukraine by any means. He only is pro himself, pro-Trump. And I had a thought that he only wants a Nobel Peace Prize because Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize. And yeah, he said it was unfair. And I don't really believe that he really cares about Ukrainians or Russians or any other people in the world. He's a businessman. And it is a deal, a bargain for him to end the war in some way and promote this as his victory to make his stock exchange rate higher. It's like the stock exchange strategy. That's what I see here.
Absolutely. Caolan, what's your observation?
I think that the entire strategy for Trump has just been that he wanted this all to be over as fast as possible, realized pretty quickly that it wasn't going to be over as fast as possible because it's really complicated. And he finds it easier just to make Ukraine look weak as possible, and he's just going to continue doing that. Again, that's why he put out the Kursk statement. That's why he said that there are no church roofs left in Ukraine, that they're all destroyed. That's why he said there's nothing standing left in this country. And his strategy, I think, is just going to continue to do that because it's the easy way out. Again, he thought that he was treating this whole situation as a business deal, like it was selling a used car, and realized that it's actually far more complicated. But I think this is just going to continue for as long as he's in office, and that's just how it is now.
I just cannot understand what made him think that he can even talk both sides into like some kind of peace, because Ukraine is invaded. Ukraine is fighting for its existence. Russia wants to destroy Ukraine. Ukraine doesn't want to die. What made him believe that he's able to either talk Putin out of, attacking Ukraine, or either talk President Zelensky into like submitting, surrendering, and things like that? Did he even think that it was possible? I think the real reason is actually different. I think the real reason is that he simply wanted to win elections, okay, and his advisors told him, "Dude, lie, okay." Lie as much as possible. Lie about Haitians. Lie about Ukraine. He lied 53 times that he's gonna stop the war in Ukraine in 24 hours as soon as he becomes a president. 53 times. It's all on the television, and basically that's it. I think he probably understood that, like, yeah, I don't know shit about, international relations, about peace negotiations, especially, with involving such parties as Ukraine and Russia. But apparently his advisors just told him, like, dude, lie, okay? Start lying a lot, because we need to win those elections. And basically that's what happened.
I think he actually thinks that Putin is his friend, though. I mean, in the interview with Steve Witkoff, who had met with Putin after Trump's assassination attempt, Putin, commissioned this beautiful portrait of Trump, this beautiful portrait from the most beautiful artist in all of beautiful Russia, and gave him this amazing painting. And Trump was so moved by this moment. You know, this is just the most typical, standard, easy way to compromise and to get someone to do stuff in Russia. It's just a standard KGB tactic that they use with all sorts of politicians. The sort of flattery, technically forms of bribery. But Trump buys it because he only believes himself. He only knows about himself. And he genuinely thinks that Putin loves him, that Putin's his friend, and that if Putin sits down with him and he gives him a phone call, Putin will go, you know what? Yeah, we'll concede. It'll be fine. And Zelensky will say, okay, yeah, we'll all make up and it'll be fine. He just thinks it's a friendship and he thinks it's a game. I think genuinely that's what it is. And I don't even know if he knows that what he's putting out is lies. I think he just realizes, okay, this is a mess. The best way to do it, to still side with my friend, is to just trash Zelensky, which is why he did that at the White House, why he does it all the time consistently, why he lied about Kursk, why he lied about the number of Ukrainians killed as well, because he thinks Putin is his friend, because Putin has always used flattery on Trump. This went on for decades, even before Trump was in politics, because Russia have a tactic of going to people they think are going to be senior politicians, also big celebrities in media and social media, and they flatter them. And it's just a tactic. They invite them to Moscow. They invite them to parties in Moscow. They do this to British politicians as well. They film compromat on them. And that's just what it is. So Trump has been basically convinced into the Russian narrative, into the Putin narrative, well before 2016 even. And that's I think why he saw this as just like a personal situation he could fix, and now I think he's just going to back out. This whole thing about give us if Ukraine doesn't basically surrender, then we're not going to deal with this anymore. I think they will. I think they're just going to disappear out the door, because Trump doesn't want to fix it if Putin isn't going to, if he can't give Putin what he wants. And I think Ukraine has realized that, the Ukrainian government has realized that America are basically going to walk out the door. And I think they've basically just gone, okay, right, we're just going to work with what we have, San America. We're going to work with our European partners, and we're going to build super cool technology and do things like Sunday, and we'll do it ourselves. And if we're not, it's the same thing when they weren't allowed to use permissions with long-range missiles because America put this chokehold on them. So they built their own drones and put them into Russia. This is just like a bigger version of that. I think they're just out the door. I think at this point they're finished with it. So.
Absolutely. One very threatening thing that I noticed probably starting last month was when starting from Marco Rubio and finishing with the spokesperson of the White House. Basically, we started seeing those messages emerging that if we cannot reach like any progress in negotiations, then the United States will just withdraw from them. And initially, I thought that it was a message to Putin, because it's like, if Trump had at least some kind of influence on him, then he would probably tell him that, dude, it's better to have me, as part of negotiation parties, as part of this negotiation team, and negotiate with me, than having me supporting Ukraine against you. But all that Trump basically was able to do was literally say, Vlad, stop, Vlad, please. My God, Paul, do you think that it's possible that we will see Trump's team withdrawing from negotiation process in the nearest future?
Well, I do not consider those threats to be serious ones. What I consider to be a serious, dramatic shift is the 2 rounds of Ukraine-Russia talks in Istanbul. A couple of months ago, I considered that impossible at this stage of the war. And right now we have consistent context. We have proper diplomacy. After the Spiderweb operation, the next day, negotiations with the Russian delegation and Ukrainian delegation was late by 1 hour. So it is the proper way to conduct talks with those people. And it is not even... a disrespect. It is not a disrespect. It is in the wicked minds of those people sitting on the Russian side. it brings respect to them. It's the otherwise. So fear and respect, a very wicked and vicious form of that. And the only proper way to conduct any kind of talks, and we have prisoner exchanges and fallen warriors exchanges as well, fallen soldiers. What comes next, I even cannot predict. But it is a dramatic shift. What happens with the United States? I do not see them very involved, even at this point.
But do you think that those negotiations are effective? Because, first of all, prisoner exchange, I remember it happening between Russia and Ukraine like March, April 2022. Within months of Russian invasion, we were already exchanging prisoners. Our guys from HOSTOMEL, for example, we had 6 guys that were captured at the HOSTOMEL airfield at the radar station, and they returned back literally within 1 month. So we know that those things are negotiated and they are managed by Security Service of Ukraine, by the main intelligence directorate. As for peace as it is, or even a ceasefire, like Russians offered a 3-day ceasefire literally in order to pick up bodies. President Zelensky said,
No, I don't believe that.
Guys, they are idiots because ceasefires exist in order to avoid deaths. And all they want is to collect bodies and keep of course, nobody believes them, but the main point here is that every single time they meet Ukrainian Ukrainian negotiators face to face, they say basically the same things. They say, we want this and this region, we want you to capitulate, we want you to decimate your armed forces, we don't want you to become part of any military alliance ever, we don't want any troops on your territory, and yada yada yada. And Ukrainians say, no, F you. And Russians say, well, okay. And then next time they meet in like 3 years, and Russians are like, we have a proposal for you, an opportunity that you cannot miss. You just gotta give up this and this territory. And basically they reply the same shit. They didn't change anything. They still believe that they can keep the territories that they captured. They still believe that they can win this war, even though the collapse of the terrorist federation we will see probably already within next year or two. Paul, do you think that this process is even effective?
Well, the 3-day ceasefire is not for collecting bodies. It is for mining the territory.
Mm-hmm.
So it was for the engineering troops to prepare better traps for the Ukrainians. It was for the engineering troops to prepare better defensive trenches, because the strongest branch of the Russian armed forces and the most clever one are the engineering troops. So North Korean engineers and Russian engineers, they know how to dig in. About the collapse of the Russian terrorist federation, we all hope for that, and the economy. Just trash the oil, and you will see the war stopping. Stop the oil trade, and the war will stop in 3 days. Just they will go on the on some kind of charge for 3 days, and then they will immediately start negotiations. First, the 500% tariff on oil, then on negotiations, full ban, trade isolation, and they'll leave Crimea.
Yeah,
that's the way. That will be the only way to have the Russian Federation intact in the way that it exists today, because the oil prices killed the Soviet Union. Could not they kill Russia? They could.
Absolutely, they could and they should. But frankly speaking, I am a bit pessimistic about United States placing sanctions, even though, like one of the recent updates that we've heard literally literally this morning was that United States coordinating their efforts with the European Union on placing new sanctions on Russia, but I personally don't really see this happening. Just because I know how much Trump doesn't want to do that. Caolan, do you think that the negotiation process is effective, and do you think that we will see United States placing sanctions on Russia in the nearest future?
I think that it's very, very obvious every single time the Russians come to the negotiating table and shows America and shows the world that they're not interested in peace. And that's actually the most successful thing that comes out of these negotiations. And that's also why it's great that the Ukrainians show up willingly on time every single time to these negotiations. And the Ukrainians know that there's going to be nothing that comes out of any kind of ceasefire talks, because the Ukrainians have had these insane neighbors for forever, and they know exactly what Russia wants, and they know exactly what Putin wants, and they know that it's not peace. They know that it's actually temporarily these occupied territories until it'll be the rest of Ukraine. But the main focus of the talks are every single time they happen, nothing happens, nothing is agreed, and Putin just demands more and more and more stuff. And that's the most effective thing from them, because I mean, what I'm pessimistic about is whenever I see the Daily Mail or the mainstream media or CNN report these ceasefire negotiations as if they're actually going to lead to something. Putin maybe want peace. These are literally headlines you see in Britain's biggest newspapers and the Sun as well. Putin peace plan, Putin peace. Those words shouldn't even be put together. Those are words that literally could come out of a Kremlin press release, because Putin wants to convince the world that he wants peace. And those ceasefire talks shows that he doesn't, because they are insane demands, insane. And anyone that looks at them can just realize how ludicrous it is to maintain and take more stolen land, to make sure that Ukraine can't have any NATO support, any military, any arms. Anyone would look at these, even if they were pro Russia even slightly in the US, and say, well, that doesn't seem very fair. So I see the processes most effectively with just showing what Russia is and how absolutely insane they are. And my main focus with the whole thing has always been Russia doesn't want peace, and those negotiations show that. And the best thing that came out of the negotiations yesterday was that, but also the reactions to the faces of the Russians, who were all just sitting there looking furious because a third of their fleet had been destroyed. That was actually a pretty great moment. I personally enjoyed that. But no, that's I think until the rest of the world fully realizes that Trump that Putin doesn't want peace, then they're still going to scramble every time to run and cover these things. And I just think it's a waste of time. But you're right about what you just said about sanctions as well. Sanctions are absolutely key. When the Soviet Union fell, the first thing Russia tried to do in the late 90s was to quickly set up the Nord Stream pipeline by offering Europe cheap gas if they built the pipes. And that wasn't because they're the most lovely, generous people ever and they just think Europe deserves cheap gas because Europe's, great. It's because they wanted to have power over Europe, power of energy power, and they also wanted the money when they could hike the prices. And we've become drunk on the fumes of this Russian gas. Europe still buys a massive amount of it, and if that tap was turned off, and if alternative sources were found, which I know take time, but we should be looking into it. It's been 3.5 years, and if sanctions were put on, you're right, Russia would be done in 3 days, because what is driving the war machine right now is money, and what the money is coming from is Russia's resources. Russia doesn't export anything other than oil and gas. They don't export any good ideas. They don't export any good culture. The culture they claim to export is all stolen. They don't export anything other than their gas, and that is the one thing to stop. But I'm gonna get what Paul said as well. I'm pretty pessimistic about the idea that would probably happen anytime soon. But it is the absolute most critical point to repeat, because it would be over, and it would give Ukraine Crimea back, definitely, if Russia was on its knees like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, Paul, please go on.
Yeah, about the culture, it's not just stolen. What they implemented actually is a weapon, because right now there's a new campaign all over the world. They're promoting, even in the United States, new regions of Russia. They create Russian houses and demonstrate exhibitions or how well people live in the liberated territories of New Russia. So it's culture is a weapon in the hands of Russians right now. Always was, always, even during the Soviet period in Canada, in the United States, they tried to ban the independent Ukrainian, like the remnants of the Ukrainian Republic, which emerged in the Ukrainian Revolution of 1918 and 1917. They tried to ban it on the legal way. So what they're doing right now is continuing to use the cultural warheads, let's say so.
Yeah, unfortunately. Caolan, I really wanted to hear this story about your recent trip to Belgium. Can you talk a bit more about it?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's probably one of the first times I've kind of properly told the story about it from beginning to finish. I mean, Phidias is an MEP, Cyprus MEP. He's been putting out crazy pro-Kremlin propaganda literally since he took office, and he talks more shit about Ukraine than he does about Cyprus and what he should be doing for the people that voted for him. He got onto this platform because he was a YouTube prankster, very serious person. Obviously, he used to do very serious political things like go to Japan and not pay for train fares and see how long he could get away with it. Very serious person. And he amassed a big following in Cyprus by doing this, and then kind of used it to do an experiment to see if he could get elected. And he turned being a YouTube prankster, a joke, into like a political joke, and he got elected. And it became really serious because Elon Musk started amplifying him, and he was getting like 30 or 40 million views, putting out anti-Ukraine lies, saying that 80% of people in occupied territories of Ukraine wanted to be Russian because they spoke Russian, like specific Kremlin talking points. And then the final straw was he turned up in Moscow during the Victory Day celebrations that in 2025. And started saying that, I started repeating Kremlin talking points there. And this stuff was getting millions and millions of views. And it wasn't just the impact with spreading lies. This is a person who sits in a seat of power, a person that votes on things like sanctions, votes on things like aid to Ukraine, absolutely critical. And there didn't seem to be anyone actually really investigating him. There's been a couple of journalists that have been looking into him from Greece and from Italy, but no kind of mainstream journalists being like, what the hell is going on here? There's an elected member of European Parliament repeating Kremlin lies on some of the biggest platforms, and no one's asking if they're being paid or not. No one's confronting him. And that was ludicrous to me, like absolutely insane. So I started investigating him, looking into friends that he used to have that helped get him elected, did on and off the record interviews with people that helped get him into that position. And I reached out to him for comment because there was very nefarious things they were saying. They were saying that he was, repeating these Kremlin lies because of ulterior motives. And then he blocked me. And then one of his colleagues basically said, Kalin, I know Phidias really, really well. We helped get him elected. All he cares about is views, nothing else. So I said, okay. So I released a TikTok saying, I'm investigating Phidias. I believe that he's a Russian asset because he's an asset to Russia. He's been putting out these things, and I'll be putting out a documentary about him. That gets 1 million views. So he blocks me because this is what he seems to be, thriving on is energy. And he actually agrees for a sit-down interview a couple of days from then. And he wanted it all on his terms. And I think he thought that he could manipulate this whole thing like he does with all of his social media content, jump cuts, edits. He does this to a lot of different people. He wanted it on his terms in his private room in the European Parliament, filmed by his people, and to get me accreditation to get in. So what I did was I called up my MEP friends. I got into Parliament beforehand. I set it up right in the middle of the European Parliament, 2 bar stools, not normally places anyone would film, hired a film crew, and then called him 15 minutes before and said, by the way, I'm already here. Why don't we just start the interview, together? So he couldn't get away and he couldn't selectively edit it. And what he thought was going to happen was that I would just be like some sort of idiot TikToker, like a lot of his friends and colleagues, basically, who just put out 30-second videos. He thought that I was just a blogger. But I've worked with John Sweeney for years, investigative reporters. I ran Byline TV for years. I've done hundreds of investigations and into Russian propagandists like this. So I did homework, which I don't think he thought about. So what unfolded was quite unbelievable, and it was talk of the whole parliament. Like almost every MEP has seen this. It was played non-stop on Cyprus TV. But he basically tried to say nonsense about Turkey invading his country to try and throw me off, and then try to ask me a couple of misleading questions. When I said this interview was on my terms and not his terms, he ran out of content, because this is all about content, right? For these people, this is not politics, it's just content, endless content. And then he started to reveal himself, and that's what happens when you push someone in an interview. That's what happened with Prince Andrew's interview when he went on about Pizza Express. Interviews like this are how you find the like who someone is, and that's what. And he ended up saying, "What if those children that were abducted and kidnapped and taken to Russia, maybe they wanted to be in Russia?" And that actually reveals what he thinks. That wasn't content that he had pre-planned, and this is what we're dealing with. And I'm really glad that he said that. And at that point, I put my notepad down because I actually didn't have any more questions. This was basically it. Concluded the interview, and it went viral, millions and millions of views. But what's important is it played endlessly, nonstop, on repeat in local TV stations and print newspapers in Cyprus. People who voted for him were really disgusted with it. Local newspapers said that it was an embarrassment for Cyprus. And I think it will hinder the re-election of this person, because now his voters can see him for who he is. He hadn't posted for a week after this video had come out, which is good. So it prevented at least some Russian propaganda being spread. But most importantly, it showed people who he is, and that video cannot be deleted. And in typical fashion for these people, he re-uploaded his own version of the edit to try and drown it out, because obviously he's got all these followers, but they didn't get a fraction of the coverage as my report. So I was super, super proud of this, because it was like, it showed people who he was. But I think what was most shocking was just that no one else had done this. You know, I just have Patreon that pays for literally all of my journalism in Ukraine. And sort of CNN and Sky and all these outlets that are supposed to be dedicated to this sort of stuff, misinformation, disinformation, who have billions of dollars, didn't send one reporter. So I think it also revealed the kind of state and priorities of the media. But Phidias, there's a full documentary still coming out about him that I'm doing that includes all the interviews and whistleblowers. But he's not the first person that I'm looking at, and he'll definitely not be the last. I mean, when it comes to targeting Russian propagandists and people like this and people who put this stuff out, I did this with Nick Shirley. Remember 8 months ago.
Yeah.
I know exactly what they're about, and I'm just going to keep doing that as often as possible, honestly, because it's important. People need to know who these people are. And a lot of their supporters might go, "Oh, okay, I might not watch this person anymore," and then that's less terrible propaganda polluting our news feeds, polluting our airwaves. Because the reason we're having pro-Kremlin dictatorships installed across the world is because people are uninformed about who they're voting for, because they don't know who they are. And this is kind of one of the steps with that is the media actually holding people to account and showing them this. So this was interesting, and it was pretty great, honestly.
Yeah, people in the chat say thank you for your work and things like that. But where can they see the interview? Is there any sneak peek or something like that? Any preview for the people to see?
Yeah, well, unlike Phidias, I didn't add jump cuts and crazy edits. You know, I said I would put out the full original unedited piece. That's pinned to the top of my Twitter profile. It's also on my YouTube channel. And then I've put all the highlights on, Instagram and everything. So if you just look on my profile, you'll see it straight away. And then the documentary will come out in a few days with the whole thing. It shows my journey to Poland, getting there. It shows the kind of the behind the scenes of this whole operation and how it all came together. But it was really, really, really interesting. And I'm actually shocked at just how quickly he revealed himself, because with people like this, I genuinely don't think they care that much about politics. It's about content, and he genuinely is a fan of Russia. He loves Russia. And that is what became apparent. And it's a disgrace when people have called for an investigation in the parliament for him because of all this. So anyway, if you want to see it, definitely watch it. It makes pretty compelling viewing. And at one point he tries to kind of lean forward and grab my shoulders, which is a tactic used to kind of try and take control of someone, take control of an interview physically. There was a few times he'd lean forward almost to grab me. And this is what people do when they're losing control and they're trying to exert control. But it's pretty fiery. It's pretty dramatic. But it makes a good watch if if you've got 20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul, do you have comments?
I really did not know there were such, how I want to say the word that starts with M, but I'll say such clowns at the European Parliament. I figured it out from Caolan's channel, I believe from Instagram even, and not from YouTube. Uh, it was wild. It was a wild interview. I don't really imagine anyone with less experience that Kalin has setting up this interview, calling the camera guys just in place. So that there were so many things that could go wrong in that interview, but it still played out well. We got a lot of views. We got a person, a propagandist who's made a clown worldwide, and yeah, it's the only way to fight hateful propaganda with humor and satire. Yeah, Kevin, good job. Maybe we could help you in that in some way. Maybe in future we'll meet in Brussels, because it's the place that I really want to go to work as a journalist. Maybe not only as a journalist, but yeah, Brussels and that place interviews. What else about this thing is that he comes from Cyprus. Cyprus, a country that has a lot of its territory under occupation from Turkey. And it's not an active conflict anymore. It's like frozen for decades. But still, it makes me wonder why so many people from Cyprus are pro-Russian while people from Greece are not. Maybe there's something behind that.
Um, Cyprus is a small country with a small population, and Russia has been pumping loads of disinformation into Cyprus for a really long time. And I think
And
they
money.
specifically yeah, and I think they do that because they target countries in Europe with smaller populations because it's easier to convince a smaller population, which still also has standing and MPs in the EU Parliament. It's harder to do that with politicians in something like the UK. And when I didn't realize the extent of it until I spoke to some of the Cyprus journalists that had been looking into it, and they were like, "It's really bad here. There's so much." Kremlin propaganda in our newspapers, and there's so much money, Russian money, that's been put into Cyprus as well. And they said it's actually not quite surprising. The church, Phidias's dad owns a church in Cyprus that's like an Orthodox church, and all the signs in this town are written in Russian. It's like a super Russian population. This is how the story starts of this whole thing. There's so much influence from Russia in Cyprus. And that's why this is all even more intriguing, because it's like we got this politician who gets into power, puts out Kremlin stuff. This comes from this town, and it's all Russian, and it's just yeah. But this is not the only one. There were two other MEPs that went to Victory Day parade from European Parliament, and there are a lot of MEPs that say the same stuff he's saying, but don't put it out on TikToks and get loads of views. The only difference is with Phidias is he was very, very visible. And that's where the real problem is. And I think a lot of Ukrainians were even shocked when they saw this video, because they were like, in the EU, I didn't realize that there were, elected politicians actively going to Moscow. And I was like, yeah, this is actually, it's a deep-seated problem. When you properly start looking into it, it gets worse and worse and more depressing.
Yeah, well there's always a Phidias anywhere you go, in any
Yeah.
given community, there will be a Phidias. But he literally said that, like, what if Ukrainian kids literally wanted to go to Russia, those that were kidnapped and had their parents killed?
He basically said, well, I said, so what he did was he voted on a bill that had been passed by the European Parliament that said, do you condemn the kidnapping of Ukrainian children? And of 533 votes, he was one of the three that said, no, I don't condemn it. And that raised absolute fury with not just Ukrainians, but anyone that believes in like literally decency on X. And then he changed his vote and said he abstained when faced with this backlash, which is still interesting because not taking sides on should you kidnap children is also fucking terrible. But that aside, that's what I asked him when I sat down with him. I said, why don't you condemn the abduction of children? This is it was just a straight up question. He was like, well, what are you talking about? This and this and this. And he tried to use this sort of Russian two sides issue with it. And when I realized that he was refusing to condemn it, that's when I was like, this person actually believes something in this. Like, this is actually pretty crazy. And when pushed and pushed and pushed, that's when he came out with this line. And that's when it was all over. So I'm really glad that I went in on that the most, because this is, if you're a person who is sympathetic to Russia, if you're a person who believes propaganda, if you're a person who doesn't really care about Ukraine, and you still see a politician and MEP saying, I don't really condemn the kidnapping of children, that is across the board, left and right, appalling. And I think that was what was important. It's not a two sides thing. You can't spin that. No one can spin that. That's why it was so dramatic, I think.
Guys, let's just imagine this. Okay, I am a 12-year-old kid. I have both parents. I live in my room with like my computer. I'm a gamer. I'm playing games, after school. I'm happy. I'm satisfied with my life. I play football outside. I live in peaceful Ukraine. I have everything I want. I watch YouTube. I'm subscribed to videos, by the way, even though I don't know the language much, but I watch this asshole too. I love my life. Then all of a sudden, first of all, my city starts being bombed, hit with missiles. Then all of a sudden, a bunch of dumb fucks from another country come to my house, kill my parents, and take me to like far away, either to Crimea or
to a
freaking
shithole.
Yeah, or freaking Volgograd, where I am pronounced a Ukrainian orphan who has only one option now: joining a freaking military camp for kids in Russia. Of course, I always dreamt about this. Of course, I always wanted to change my peaceful life in Ukraine, my computer, my dog, my parents. Of course, I dreamt of changing this to a military camp for kids when I'm training to become a new Russian invader in like several years. That is the logic on the level of Phidias. That is so freaking fantastic. Oh my god. This dude, he would earn more money being a freaking sci-fi writer than a YouTuber. I tell you this.
Yeah, it's I think it's why it hit people so much, because it's one of the most despicable things that Russia has that has happened recently with the kidnapping of these children. And I think it's just astounded so many people. But a lot of people believe this kind of nonsense and this kind of garbage, who are elected, who are in our media, and oh yeah, it's just horrendous. The whole thing is horrendous. It still kind of blows my mind. But yeah.
That's crazy, because a lot of people don't know one fact. Majority of those kids that were kidnapped, they became orphans while being kidnapped. Their parents were killed. And a lot of people don't know this fact. A lot of those kids that are kidnapped, their parents were killed by Russians before that, before they were literally transferred to Crimea or occupied territories or to Russia itself. And they don't understand, like, Phidias is like one of the imbeciles, literally. I just have absolutely no respect to this person whatsoever. By the way, next time you are in that part of the world, give me a call, okay? Because I live nearby. So,
sure.
And we have good beer. So, before we finish this, I would like to also talk just a bit about the recent elections in Poland, because a lot of unrest I can see in the chat around this, the results of those elections. Guys, your opinion on this, what will we face in the future? Will we face new challenges, or will it bring us some benefit that I cannot see myself, honestly? Maybe I'm wrong. Paul, what do you think?
Well, we'll face more challenges because Poland has just elected their Trump. And about Nawrocki, even Lech Walesa just came out and said, I do not respect that man. It's the end of democracy in Poland. I would not be so dramatic because it's not the end of democracy. Probably for the next 8 years, conservative politicians will rule in the country again. Prawo и справедливость. But yeah, the difference in 1%, it is crazy. I mean, the far right conservative Catholic politician against the democratic pro-European mayor of Warsaw, and the football fan and far right populist wins in Poland. It's not a good news for anyone and for Ukraine as well, because we had strained relations with even with Andrzej Duda. No matter the friendly relation between him and Volodymyr Zelensky, but we had some conflict, and since that conflict started, the blockades on the border crossings started, with Ukrainian grain being spilled on the ground. Possibly not only Ukrainian one, but we had those conflicts on the border. What we have now is a Trump, but not over the sea and far away, as in the song, about the British Redcoats, but right here in a couple hundred kilometers from Kiev, in Warsaw. So it will be really hard because Poland is a real brother of Ukraine. Like, it's the defensive alliance against Russia right now. The Baltics, the Poland, and Ukraine. But still, we have a victory of a European force in Romania, Nico Shardan, if I pronounce his name correctly, is a very positive and very prospectful politician. Volodymyr Zelensky met with him. Still, Romania is the only country that did not massively block border crossings with Ukraine, and it's like, the exit for Ukrainian goods to European markets, and not only. So maybe it's even good that we have not the otherwise, because having a pro-Ukrainian, pro-European president in Poland would not stop the Polish public from blocking the border, but having a pro-Ukrainian president in Romania, which is kind of neutral, is much better.
Yeah, I agree on that. And I think that, of course, whoever rules your country, you inevitably see one thing, always their rating just collapses over time. Always. Be it
even
like
Zelensky's rating.
Even Zelensky, look, Obama, I don't know, Biden, whoever you elect, you don't really want to see elected like next time, right? For some reason, there's plenty of reasons for that, and probably that's why we have democracy, basically, because we cannot keep the same person being elected over and over again, like in terror Russia. But Caolan, what's your opinion?
Well, it's sad because over time, when you see elections like this and you see countries that are sympathetic to sort of MAGA Russia style, it's kind of encroaching around Ukraine, and getting further and further west, which is exactly what Russia want to do, because it's about slowly isolating areas. I don't know honestly that much about who this new leader of Poland is. It's not something I've been focusing on that much, so I don't know. But if I do know that Russia have been putting a massive amount of influence into any candidates or any parties or money into propaganda to convince voters to vote for candidates that don't really care about Ukraine, that say that Ukraine isn't our problem, or that side with Trump. So just watching it kind of creep around Ukraine, it's almost like surrounding Ukraine politically, with Hungary as well now. That's just horrible to see, when you actually put it on a map, this kind of red around Ukraine. So yeah, but again, I don't know that much about the Poland. I haven't looked into it enough of exactly what their policies are.
Yeah, but hopefully everything will be fine.
War.
Yeah, it's part of it's part of the situation, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. One thing I can tell you for sure, I totally respect the vote of the Polish people, all right, because they elected this person democratically. And one thing I will never blame people for, and please tell me if I'm wrong, I will never blame people for voting for the people that they vote, because I worked as a communication specialist, and I tell you this. There's always a lot of emotions, always a lot of technologies involved in elections, always a lot of brutal lies and things like that. And even, American citizens who elected Trump, I will never be saying you did wrong, you did wrong choice, because Trump's team was very, very strong, not in terms of being the best communication specialists in the world, people with the best intention. No, they literally said, dude, lie, keep lying a lot. Okay, that's why they won elections. So I never blame people, I blame those who make those people vote. And basically the opponent was, let's say, the team of Trump's opponent was weak, and they didn't consider didn't consider being victorious. They didn't consider the victory as their only one chance, basically.
They didn't bother.
Yeah, it's like that. We win, we win. We lose, we lose. No, it's like, how do you win the war with such
with such appeal?
Yeah, that is crazy.
Mm-hmm. That was a comment that for the guest to try to explain the historical beef between Ukraine and Poland, it's a very complex topic.
We will talk about it.
We will talk about it later. Just about a couple of details. Ukraine is mostly Orthodox. It has also Greek Catholic, Protestant, and Poland is mostly Poland is mostly Catholic country. So difference in cultures, in religions for a long time. Parts of Ukraine being in the Rzeczpospolita, in the Polish state, Polish Empire, breaking from that Polish Empire. A lot of historical context to consider, even not touching World War II. And World War II has still a lot of pain for both sides because of the partisan movements, and we will surely talk about that, probably with a Polish expert. If you've got some kind of a Polish blogger or friend, we could discuss this situation with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I can bring one. That's a good point, by the way. But guys, I think that it's a good opportunity to wrap it up, because it's late after midnight in Ukraine. I know that you guys gotta wake up early. Before we call it a night, guys, do you want to say anything to our viewers? Let's start with you, Paul.
So thank you for supporting my channel. I try to post from time to time, but still I need to get on track of posting regularly, not only for UATV but also for my personal channel. It's really pleasant. I'm happy to see you guys here on these streams, and being part of the community and developing it is an honor to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caolan.
No, well, just thanks for listening and to listening to the story about Phidias, and and for your questions about watching the full thing. If you want to do it, just have a look on my channel and it's there. But and thanks for just for having me on as well.
Thank you so much. It was a privilege. And dear friends, my big thanks goes to all the viewers of this channel, all the family members, because you're not just viewers, you're my family members. I consider you my family members. Big thanks to all of you. Big thanks to our brave moderators who provided us with security guarantees during this stream. Big thanks to all the members of my channel who keep this channel running. So we'll see you next time. And as always, be safe, my dear friends there in Ukraine. Also be safe. Praying for you, and my thoughts are with you every single moment. Caolan, Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you for
Thanks.
inviting.
And my dear friends, see you later.
Goodbye.